afternoon. This is Cal State Long Beach reporting live from the Dartmouth Round Robin with important news from the people living in extinction now. Can I get a witness?
This is an ongoing emergency, don't panic, you're already living in the bomb. Have been dropping everywhere we go from Long Beach to Dartmouth. We're living in Populous now, but it seems like Emory and Tripp have been the consequences of the war that are happening now. I've heard the pieces before the blast from our face off the bomb, those discriminate nuclear winter mass are making people go hungry to climate change. You want to know what we think about the topic? We do not think about U.S. China class, Taiwan, SCS. We is not talking about Russia for U.S. for driving escalation Ukraine, not about AQ North Arcadia, the IS targeting Indian nuclear plane, the dirty bomb has not been linked to the University of 9/11 attack. We think about the nuclear bomb saving dropping in 1526 as taking Africans from their homeland and families. We use the property for the Western world for 300 years. That took about 12 million souls. We think about the political bomb of the Emancipation Proclamation of false promise and political stuff for Lincoln to gain popularity to become president. We are a problem. We're talking about the bomb of being promised for the African millions of the bomb dropped that we weren't getting it. We're talking about slavery and Jim Crow, Jim Crow, the slavery in 13, slave patrols and the police of plantation, the redlining and segregation, the bomb. Just kept on coming, CIA, crack about it, pigeonhole the black community, the address, and exercise the addiction. I'm really bleaching this event in the black and brown neighborhood, creating a popular atmosphere that exists in City of Los Angeles, Detroit, New York, Chicago, and more. They can say actually good. Oh, you mess make up to neglect like medical anti-black and the housing crisis, job discrimination, massive spread of HIV in black communities that turns good. Oh, you meant the bombing of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Philly, bombing in neighborhoods against Blue 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, crackdown on black liberation as far as time can tell. All cause black people want to secure a future for themselves. No, something to change. How about until you're doing anything the victim were other people seeing it for the return to the room with 36, kill women, 100 family, friends, member, 40 image, gender, don't need to oppress. Oh, I get it. How about the bomb don't discriminate? That's why politicians will bomb Mexico. These people are systematically deprived basic infrastructure like water, electricity, hate crime of all-time high news, helping Israel drop weapons of mass destruction on Palestine. We are not approaching the end of the war. We are already living in it. You're scared of nuclear winter, discriminating, violent, apocalyptic conditions. We've been there, done that from energy to insurance to disarm conventions to the topics. We're in the most serious debate that end with universal discourse of nuclear weapons and war is the urgent impact of war while watching the positive condition of white supremacy that determines that before and after the bomb that's backing off. 19 nuclear seekers, I think they only amount of time in nuclear nation join the U.S. into a discourse rated by 150 nuclear war, the only one way to meet our fight after the have different views. The white nigga form the unified amount of anger, not be the bomb of white folks in nuclear seeking would not be universal was. White America will be left to go to sing, and then with all the represent if you're black survivor, the country longest for racism and the dude of extended racism will surround the life form after this right sort of thing, stuck in the bill. Tell the poor people going to struggle with the unclear reflective movie apocalypse, you go to the form, and then second pull lock in there, the nuclear war on going public conditions, say offer attack for disrupting a traditional debate. Fears a different approach to the topic because style debate associated with blackness required to confront its own racist fears, which loss of fairness, quote unquote. Also, be represented if you nuclear weapons black in the dark and over the dark and not based on you may price of white days, but back to yesterday. And black people are therefore something to securitize life for whiteness. People like Letitia King, Ahmad, Aubrey, and Trayvon Martin, and made that the black and brown people across the globe were due to an enlightenment civil defense pedagogy. The future of America comes at the deterrence of black future. That's early 20 generations for civil defense of the race and the infrastructure defense of the community for the people. So I can over red line policy qualified black women moving on to the department of the neighborhood line in the papers and black and future that's supposed to be litigated necessary for you. Civil defense is our race and the world city on the scene also over the so the image tools over disposal of the city allow for massive defense and civilian life with the concept of hyper-resident nuclear company negative impact high implement hunting war bombs that drop on the communities every day in the direct white subway white American fellas not only fight nuclear threat to the nation but also because of it not taking back. These are the provided solution to the racial conflict, the racial crisis, and from the destruction of black neighborhoods to the supposed threat of nuclear war from another imperial power, the fantasy of nuclear conflict, and the search for a correct nuclear posture created the benefit of the same violent infrastructure of white services in this future. We must disarm the civil defense pedagogy that causes whiteness to take itself with nuclear weapons. That means tweeting policies, what history of something of agree with nuclear fantasy, to take it with the reason back and reason not being ethnic, overnight rights, and knowledge about the German race hierarchy based on nuclear policy, placement in terms of constitutional privileges, whether open up my relation and question how weapon reflects subjectivity, and germane to the study and the other privilege of disarming human with directly and hierarchy and nuclear fantasy, not only for attack liberal darkly reduce the world, a recent conflict is by atomic genocide and nuclear scenario planning in the form of civil defense pedagogy that's informed through introversion. When you hear the word Emory says nuclear war affects black people too, is a white supremacist guy that only saying black life if it meant that white life is continue living. That's present too. That's an angle whether we rubble the representation, whether we attack everybody thinking very much like the prayer for emergency women, prayer to coordinate homosexual outside the perfect shelter, including white American women were the feature name African American with who the only there might be subversive concept with introversion, internalized laws of whiteness, playing the whole actually by nothing the African American person material into right white school represented, our government issue, feeling like you keep this fellow national prevent civil defense and the teacher raising nuclear education away to for their patrons in the pragmatic utility with civil garrison to the government routine for new war, new approaches, civil defense, constantly news that the need of identity asking active person to go exalted from besides others, and black features should not have to come out of cause. Black features where the grounded in the teacher can walk out without a black warrior world with black people don't gotta worry about curly hair ruin and job interviews. refuse, don't have to worry about the popo pulling them over where hate is gone and replaced with love. Futures where is logic is the field of defense that justify the need for nuclear weapons is dishonor. Futures where black lives are proof over the head doctors can be trusted in books, and the books they open at schools got faces at them on the page. Thus, we some people should disarm the United States nuclear forces of defense to a topic ever future. And thus, the one AC reverses enemies by remembering the future to the past slavery and the 2000 slavery reproducing the general conditions for black lives is backing off. 19, the nuclear fission focus on the nuclear war not to account for the large the end of the world, common future for information like this is our forward nuclear private nuclear happen like also drop and also nuclear yeah, the pieces the young movie future then the work we remember slavery remember already having to slavery and enemies in the mother remember the future past also this is the everything the past go break with lock the apocalypse rather than the repetition of the first future rather than really adjusting present ones. And in order to combat black future, this must align yourself with the black people on the ground now that are fighting against the apocalypse for roots and be more so the black movement built to see resistance long people must embody and align yourself with the Bengali black liberation movement in order to create black future beyond the end of the world. Thus our performance as nuclear jazz in the body protest that carves out the space for black resistance that gentle and jazz as protest music revolution makes the body the circuit jazz about music jazz go breaking up here jazz even political revolution not about the yellow jazz others being heard with the hot street food the hot lunch yes Japan because of family the protest get government on the national guard rail integration jazz representing nuclear weapons nuclear war nuclear have the resistance music space festival accessibility no pressure read that's all that goes about top of nuclear weapons feel roaming but essentially you start competition back to the work about bomb here she however history rate black those that cannot erase music and this is a form of post memory that refuses the circulation of white press in favor of circulating back the resistance which historically mobilized communities that just sold 23 had to be a white eagle was rightly circulated back on the white because white patients not back to the all your well the real life like white terrorism we took door black people the one conversation to black press always been side parts of the activism and back to the post memory response to white spaces violent post memory who should not be interpreting most of violence and so which is LeBron to want to be visible in the screen white videos for the running the nuclear black memory emerge aloe who will be white spiral memory opposite spaces or not the future while making critical assessment of the past and the future post memory offer to yeah the past and all trying to make black people organized and learn from them with connectivity to the vital politically the way black people and such as the form of massive black people outside the entire skills comes to Chicago Fed and genders fell everything comes to bear witness and inform her because what is as well as the threats of black community got like civil rights movement the rest has immense power and against nuclear forces of civil deaths in debate we challenge resolution to a radical state support that's a critical clash with necessary for a epistemological growth that's mid 2020 balance and understanding in the world of the critical voice article with the absolute critical resolution parties that are convinced parties that go basically on the very level anyway argument like you put topicality in line no one really hearing from that resistance to the military topical and particularly to the core of the topic and balance to the power of the by religious events close to the legal content of where you're negative ground from radicalism where we contact me to arguments on gay case commented and ethic argument managing by preparing John Brownlee more than you can John Brownlee for reading culture substance and traditional or this is a feature on the blog and traditional nuclear debates maintain a hegemonic terrain in nuclear that re-intenses that squad 2022 the hegemonic nuclear circulating non-proliferating content that new contain on the great nuclearism with this on the genuine war born power and will affect the United Nations doing Islamic gate in beginning with the true policy and Christian votes and substitution with the street this being hegemonic as a nuclear by nuclear system. Capitalism tend to be absent, and Tripp, your role as a white person is prioritized. A radical state is important. Debate is a space of civil defense upheld by traditional notion of what is fair enough and what good clash is. Emory will eventually attempt to say that since we have entered this tournament, we expect for him their forms of fairness and clash. But we have not said that we don't want those fair adjudication, rather that we will impact turn therefore the fairness as not rooted in some debate rulebook, rather normative procedures that are made by a privileged institution in order to assume marginalized debaters who seek radical engagement in debate. Therefore, he prioritize liberatory fairness that solves all the standards but seeks inclusion of revolutionary strategy that changes the personal conditions of this community. Under our model, class debates like futurism versus pessimism contain a season worth long of unpacking question of coalition, humanism, resistance tactics, and others, and how we engage in historical archives should, or how we should be black consider all require extremely detailed testing that's valuable for us to engage in, even if you're reluctant to philosophical nihilism. This space is marked by people whose experience has been shaped over time. Your debate encourages the form of subject formation that crafts and creates who we are. We spend countless hours and days in debate, and what we clash about matters. We are calling everybody here to reflect on your time in debate and think about the encounter in debate that have shaped you. Now is a particular time to engage with a radical state point that's key to challenge subjectivity.
You're good.
Yep.
So the Del Sol evidence makes an argument about the 1EC's resistance to dominant circulations of whiteness. Does the 1EC ever make a claim or structural claim about race?
What I think if you're shooting for like a question of ontology, no, it's not making an ontological claim.
That makes sense to me. I have a question.
Because the Del Sol evidence is very like particular on why progress is possible through events like the 1EC.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's not like a pest debate.
Yeah. So in the vein of some of the like progress that the 1EC endorses, I'm sort of interested in the 1EC's relationship to groups and Be More Like Black Women Build, to Cedar Resistance in Long Beach, and the 1EC's alignment with these movements.
Sure. Well, we think that the Del Sol evidence that you just asked about is what that internal link is about. We think that Ida Wells writing and circulating these things through bearing witness was key to galvanize movements like the civil rights movement, which means that we must align ourselves with Black and brown liberation on the ground through bearing witness.
Can you explain a little bit more to me? Like, what does alignment look like, and how does that galvanize those movements?
Yeah, sure. So we think that there's a couple arguments, right? The Soul evidence is very specific on this. It talks about the ways in which we circulate knowledge without spaces that are in opposition to things such as white press. We think circulating Black press and talking about the narratives
but
and
this
the apocalypse.
Seems to be in the context of journalism.
You're not letting me finish.
Right, but I have
it's not just about journalism, right? It's about it's very particular to ways with things like post-memory are key to be able to circulate and understand and organize and galvanize around violence to resist those practices. It's not just about press. That's a false reading.
I have one more question,
sure.
And once again, in relationship to the movements that the 1AC particularly aligns with. So what are some of the goals of Black Women Build or Cedar Resistance?
Yeah,
Can you give me like a few different...
So Cedar Resistance in Long Beach actively fights homelessness and displacement. We think that they've called for things such as rent control, which leads to other non-reformist reforms that the AFA think is good, to help Black people get out of the apocalyptic situation.
And then Black Women Build?
Black Women Build focuses on teaching Black women in Baltimore how to not only construct homes out of abandoned ones, right, but also repurpose those to be able to stop things such as gentrification that's happening in Baltimore now through processes such as like the examples of the ways in which they buy homes to be able to rebuild them to make it so it's very important.
So my last question about these movements is
that's not going to be good for you, but
well, I have one last question.
It's just like
what is the relationship? Do these movements have any relationship to nuclear weapons?
We think that civil defense is a nuclear force.
Okay, 1338.
Let me see some. It's 4, then case. Everyone's good?
Yeah.
Okay. First, Topicality, the resolution to divide the division of ground is negotiated and announced in advance, providing both teams a reasonable opportunity for referral and textual reading of the resolution provides a predictable basis for research resolve, means we enact policy by law, words and phrases where definitions result to be specified by resolution or as well by the legislative means by law. In the United States, is a collective term that requires action by the federal government, and the United States remains a collective term that gives access to the federal government, granted powers to the government, powers distributed Republican and government in the 50 states, the executive and Congress as well as for restrictions for the use of nuclear weapons. In Nicholas 19, something Congress part of nuclear weapons and terms which weapons is original authority. Congress part includes the authority to place restrictions on use of weapons and should require mandatory action for appeals and to should was commonly used to express mandatory rather than treasury and restrict requires a direct government limitation for turbo and 12 restriction for non-keep relevance for the CFX interpretation restriction direct government limitation and disarming requires abolishing the U.S. nuclear arsenal clip and limit disarmament means absence of any usable nuclear weapons. Disarmament requires a minimum dismantle of all nuclear disposal devices statement and disarmament of nuclear weapons have to dismantle its entire arsenal and nuclear forces refer to all weaponry and infrastructure supporting the use of nuclear weapons force in all 23 U.S. nuclear force resiliency platforms weapons forces and command and control assets such as military infrastructure necessary to conduct nuclear weapon operations. Vote negative one clash for double topic motivates in-depth research that yields values and negation argument refinement their interpretation explodes limits and also permanent conditionality makes fate on one side monologue avoided by argumentation which turns the case to fairness and should win on average 2% at the time entering a competitive activity proves arguments or shake by try to win their instrumental advantage will be affirmative under their model is the reason they should lose. Next to the advantage kind of plan. The United States should ban suburbanization, establish a universal housing scheme, increase the minimum wage to $20 an hour, and provide substantial unconditional debt-free subsidies to black women building cedar resistance, as well as other black liberation movements, support housing, and anti-gentrification measures. Also, the entire case, top of the 1AC, the criticism of how geographic zones have been created in response to the bomb. The counterplan bans the suburbs. The 1AC begot evidence is about which we inserted for context. Second and third place solved. Their evidence describes high unemployment and poor housing as quote bombs that are dropped on communities every day. The counterplan rectifies that by increasing the wage and increasing universal housing. Their evidence again inserted for reference and funding black women building cedar resistance is sufficient. Aligns with the exact same liberatory movements of the 1AC, but the movements so advocate for nuclear disarmament or even resist nuclear arsenal think of the counterplan as a pick out of their criticisms of nukes, which is more aligned with what these movements have called for. And that's offense. Black women build is funded by private banks like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs. Black women no date and private banks engage in predatory lending results in racial exploitation. Public banking solves brutal empowerment. 23 people need financial products available in service should be easy to access. Private banks provide products that applicable to terms so people reach the original border. And that is even more expensive interest rates increase banks engages in private lending, charge higher rates and risk terms borrowers with lower credit scores. Banks are like and borrowers when they are qualified for better access making accounts. It's 10 US 47% of the city's life. But then racial disparities of more of those that appear 30% right mentioned, but it's owned owned compared to the 9% of back red residents public. Making Medicare policy, banking locally and democratically governed can support banking products and invest in developing finances, affordable housing, private bank, conservative private decline, investments in public bank, permanently respond in private funding turns the housing crisis. Wall Street caused away, but public funding is clearly better. MacArthur and Edelman 17 pretty much it's for liquidity support mortgage crisis, less than banks and affordable products home buyers, allowing lenders to get paid quickly. Private securities increased total market share, holding on also PLS market by big Wall Street banks. Played also role in market role. Wall Street did not buy standards. Established encouraging more lenders to expansion of private lending, shift led to decline, quantity lending, Fannie Mae, affordable housing levels, and increased home ownership, equity marginalized communities. Wall Street share build investment portfolios and a security purchase from Wall Street. Lower quality sports strategies and bankruptcy lenders, housing crisis primarily by Wall Street banks and securitizers. Next is the nuclear energy DI. The one is nuclear limitations with Phil US has made NPT obligation home 731 NPT based on looking issues where recycles well and MC exercise NPT trash and state action of the same spot is armed states cooperative honorable section 8 NPT grid bargain share peaceful nuclear tech non-nuclear security safeguards and peaceful use and WS grown first order letter action determine that the goals quarter the legitimacy determine ensuring compliance and non-parallel and it hold their burden. That locks in international nuclear energy WNN 21 industry supports NPTs one of those nuclear energy for Spain satellite energy human satellite energy chemicals and satellite energy will company energy such as nuclear energy long without carbon time coding pursue efforts in nuclear technology. We cannot work towards the international nuclear tech facilitation for nuclear technology robust regime meets NPT and nuclear power expands and intensifies radioactive colonialism often and Roma 23 nuclear protection and leaves more hazardous space from the mining uranium. There's international injustice in this workers say repositories able we get nuclear waste is actually linked to social destruction from areas occupied by indigenous peoples in Australia, Canada, India, and US indigenous peoples already will have consequences. Marginalized communities have heard that areas of environmental risks of process term radioactive colonialism and not only more of nuclear power to expand should be a strong reason to protect this option. Nuclear energy makes global proliferation inevitable from an in 9, conventional was in the wrong dangerous all types of nuclear assessment risk proliferation, people company nuclear proliferation, connectively connected to the dual nature know how, still equal price, materials necessary, nuclear weapons programs, intelligence, subjects, he said all else, and indicating he also have significant effects on the world, the international communities that they're peaceful, atomic systems, conservative, effective arms, people planning that build after nuclear, burn energy, burn soft swings on the price of MPT, effects, and global proliferation, ensures extinction, March 22, proliferation method promoting peace, not taking account of accidental, allies, nuclear expansion, nuclear terrorism, spreading new weapons, and actually the chase of unwanted detonation, thing of opportunity catastrophes from which there will be no return. Next is the K, capitalism creates the conditions for state violence, architecture design, deny the importance of identity, rather only understanding the class meaning condition of oppression can be bins affected till 16 to innovative human state from your market logic by the policy private into the public schools as military police but the policy have been within a private sector vulnerable what between negligent government corporate greed conditions like the vulnerable and the contract is low they can be raised to die by the neutrality of the house country the mental condition relations reasons and all forms of oppression are pretty sustainable as an all forms of due class of the not but as oppression not racially radically changes the class all class person Baltimore Flint Sanford on the each has economic conditions and their nuclear jobs advance coalition building in 8 there's a difficult between music competitive reform the former of letter and political bands music thing, which is for survival of human rights and communication, builds solidarity between proletariat world and for revolution will will be please account of how much we do not have the same equivalence and music can never break a coalition, state revolution, overturn nation, state merger, state with its boundaries and institutions laws government to enforce material reality of nation state as other international contract only antiquity. The world is too complex for equal product and the world is too complex for local politics, multiple global politics, economic instability, climate change, states a collective response, the change of structural conditions of power, trying to 15, politically associated with global politics, and instability, climate change, office in order to make some lives complex in which operates and killing force or individuals for something economic corporate right away, elements property laws, biological needs, natural resources, attack, and protect commercial super involved in North reacting to the feedback loops that are reducible, never exchange directly like a condom episode of economic system of political industrial resources, human scales, natural culture, return authenticity, see world is human scales, being rejected, see perfect, true, status, world is give you, in face power, resource, utilitarian, finding safety, nations, and public knowledge, public evidence, trouble, the imperative global passion, universals, and practices from maintain hard than keeper, change of traditional, extraction of free, high tax, food, industry, complexity, with the political cost for markets, and cost. Project War, conducts political narratives and mechanisms of collective control. The impact is vast, death, and global violence, part 13, economic violence, self-holiness, energy, war, reconciliation of food price, equality, school, listening, political activity, method, chicken, have a massive diets. We lost ice, we need something once you had them to respond to minus, we can't get the point in returning, start thinking ridiculously right now, the cause of capitalism. And y'all is pragmatic demands upon the state toward an easy capitals project, Harvey 15, the project problems previously stated by direction by refusing revolution, legislative structures at the level of answering how we live in pressure community organizations of avarice and importance of CDT, respond evidence, you can yourself, promoting the decentralized competition, model, low depletion, ozone needed, or unionization laws to make the right direction from the whole of your demandments for speech, revolution, occupancy, comparison, back on 30 and for new organizing stabilities, where has to be and organizing to change some very clear project problematic with movements where there's a collective project standards to help people commit their be no politics. Case vote negative on presumption. 1 time violence and debate to ballot is bad. A single ballot can't overcome ballot practice and debate facing claiming that it does alleviates responsibility for the actors who should be held accountable. Arguments of these things should never be talked about rather than tying them to the ballot is counterproductive and obfuscates the role of the two. You should vote absolutely the see. Observe violence in the world without specified methods for political mobilization brings right liberals and waters community routes. Whereas those field of political vision I accept more political analysis easy possibility for change our so many states. Investment in political mobilization protecting either political left after responding to challenges that so it was improper that operates without an alternative political strategy policy for Scott and melancholic attachment in terms of right how many we draw criticism here's a response to the reject melancholic attachments to defeats and free forwarding overarching theories removes responsibility for action asking what policy should change keep solution oriented politics who person pointing theoretically is partification laws are all refuse military ministers will appeal on whether we refuse models against civilized order will historical terms communication with Patrick solutions and electoralistically local solutions are crazy to be lose force for the truth and then we lose the forces of all our place large theories with local initiatives responsibility for 20 cents way what we do to achieve power how we go about setting so offer laws we would be promulgating and debating about nuclear policy is good we should understand necessary reforms Brooks and Starville in 23 disagreement debates are home in the classroom obstinately determined the conversation we start nuclear education was nice against midnight students take deep dive time hours from people we learn nuclear as a hope of the culture teachers political favor more information debate education one last time is like I said matter what hooks human throws around here's human aggressive fashion campaigns for nuclear bomb campaign green home command disarmament responsible for all of us means we need education and science politicians to become a movement that express continually need to active informed population disarmament seems far away from rules of people very soon they will be the decision makers and treating racism as a personal flaw rather than system of power advances racial capitalism Martin in 18 my people courage to never white altruism so we must center ourselves that does not constitute strategy difference with inadequate responses and very similar to us only treats the personal flaw rather than system of power it is invulnerable by people's consumption of being anchored to goal redistributing power altruism carried by racial capitalism and entrenched by dominance altruism can be basis for why anti-racist action only can cancel find oneself along another only when our political or liberation bottom and others can be true solidarity have a weight anti-racism that has produced colonial outcomes generated by altruism and solidarity must man universal rights blood framework which produces inaction universal rights inspires action and extinction is a prior question under any moral framework Basel 22 we're trying to do good pick a wide range of moral theories reducing extinction as possible objective goes to be universally moral but utilitarian who can care about turning good terms get to have to work on political most utility lies in the future make sure the future happiness happens way true ethics reducing essentialism noble goal utilitarian it comes compared to good people are universally morally concerned about essential rights and have a strong plan US to make sure they don't get made my life more satisfying intuition human extinction but majority of instinct religious pure beliefs that God can have in a future in nuclear war mass majority of moral philosophies permanent extinction is very good and even rhetorical pushes towards abolition fail evidence in 21 those peace movement talk of no use argue energy should be redirected to prohibition of where direct having managed endpoints of part of the Roman prohibition treaty so eventually put no man whatsoever from a nuclear armed state nor relevant for foreseeable future mark out foreseeable future
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Status of the off.
Conditional the status quo is always illogical.
Cool. My first question, the second card about nuclear jazz, a rehighlighting says that the jazz can never end up or stops coalition and cannot incite revolution. Is a pragmatic demand that the alternative endorses is some form of like revolution?
The alternative is demands upon the state, which this evidence is also consistent with the line after what you just read talks about government.
Why is the 1AC not a demand on the state?
To enforce material reality.
Why is the 1AC not a demand on the state?
I don't think that the 1AC is called for like any state-based reforms necessarily, but also even if the 1AC has made some demands, we think that those should be organized around a practice of like anti-capital pushes.
So if that's the case, then what do anti-capital pushes, what's the accountability mechanism for white people in the party who might be anti-black to black people or racist to any other race?
Right, so in terms of like racist white people in the party, they'd be kicked out by like community members who determined that they've been racist.
Like for example, like DSA does like lots of like fucked up shit to black women lots of the time, and when black women talk about it, nothing happens. So I'm confused for why the alternative can ensure a mechanism that will protect people of color if that's the case.
So
historically speaking, like these accountability measures, right, don't ever actually like help people accountable.
Yeah,
so I'm confused for why that's something or a reason why you can trust the alternative.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think well, one important distinction to make is that the alt is distinct from like past movements. Like the alt's not necessarily DSA because the
Why?
alt is a more broader like state-based point of reform. Like it starts with the state instead
my
of
next
making.
question says, we're on the same piece of evidence. It says that jazz stops the ability for coalitions. What coalitions on the ground right now does the app stop from organizing?
Anti-capitalist, like movements and coalitions that work. Like I don't
Can
have
you name one?
No, I don't specifically.
You don't know the
names.
name of the party that your pragmatic demands are based in?
So importantly, it's not like the alt's not just like the party. Like the alt.
Well, that's what you said.
The alt
it was.
imagines a world where the government does
So it
things
just-
like bans for-profit
It
prisons,
imagines
bans
a
nuclear
world.
weapons,
Okay.
and has the government
That's
initiate that as
fine.
opposed to like
the internal link to the
Communist
disad, what is it?
The link. So like several pieces of 1AC evidence have called for nuclear disarmament. We are like impact rating that. And like we can insert rehighlighting. So it's like Nietzsche,
Yeah,
Ritchie, like all say that nuclear weapons should be disarmed. If you say that no part of the 1AC gets rid of nuclear
I
forces,
don't get it. It's like our advocacy is about civil defense.
Yeah.
right? So then it's like that's a kind of like a case argument as well. Then
What?
if you've read a lot of cards, it's just like nuclear weapons should be abolished, nuclear weapons are bad, and then you're like actually our advocacy does not do anything about that. Then that's a reason why like that those case arguments should go away. And why topicality's like
It's also an impact
Better.
on your rights for
I'm
sure.
kind of confused then because this Brooks evidence says that we should understand disarmament is good. So why is it not a double term with the disad?
Are you talking about? Well, this argument is well the dissad does say that nuclear weapons are bad and that proliferation
But the
is
Brooks
bad.
evidence says that disarmament's good.
Well, the Brooks evidence says that it's important for us to understand nuclear intricacies.
It says
We've said that disarmament
what?
is bad
No, it doesn't-
insofar
it
as it
doesn't say
results in
that.
nuclear spread.
It,
But
the
we agree
card,
nuclear weapons
the
are bad.
card says we need to talk about nuclear disarmament education. Why is that not a double term?
Well, because we've said that nuclear education and those debates are good, but we've said disarmament is bad for nuclear energy. This evidence doesn't have an impact to like the
I'm
U.S.
gonna
disarmament
start
being bad. And we said
some
nuclear weapons are bad.
We're taking prep.
Yeah, it's still going. Go ahead. Oh, I've got those.
Grace, you didn't read the abolition fails card.
I did read that card.
Are you good?
I marked it at foreseeable future.
Thank you. Alright, we have 8:30. You read them? Yeah.
You said 8:30.
We have 8:30 left, Tripp.
Oh, okay.
I know it's like they're using like
What? That's no, that can't.
so it's like 11:30.
Oh, okay. I was
But it's
it
like-
feels like you didn't use it.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, 11:30 left. Yeah.
But it's like we're just doing it like the regular way because these like all things that really make sense to me.
I love all these times.
I hate it.
But that's just.
In my head, we were like allowed to use sex the one in art because of Harvard. Like I got them mixed in my head. I wish that was how it used.
Cross flex time.
Yes.
Alright. Always the order is case. It's like a. Did you make that one advantage counterpoint?
It was like a 7.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do case, that advantage counterplan, the energy dissat, and then the cap case, and then frame. Every time y'all do the advantage counterplans, I flow them as like two separate.
Yeah, this time it actually was separate. I think in the past it's been on the same.
Oh, you mean the energy thing? Or you talking about you have the like?
The advantage
The-
plan and the energy DA were on separate flows.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, but I was okay. So, but you didn't mean the like privatization stuff.
Yeah,
That's
no,
the
yeah,
same thing.
yeah, all
Okay.
the same.
Okay.
Everybody good? Cool.
The bomb of anti-blackness is a nuclear force that radiates across civil society from slavery, mass incarceration, residential segregation. Black communities are marked as disposable through the logic of civil defense in order to make nuclear weapons simultaneously absorb its toxic effects for the benefit of a dominant white society that's hurriedly. This is ongoing apocalypse that is erased through pedagogical whitewashing of nuclear wars and incoming event and separation and structural violence from the nuclear complex. And when he performs futurism for disarming the civil defense logic, it is a process of animations in which we connect the future of nuclear violence to the past of slavery in order to envision worlds of black and brown liberation where the need for nuclear weapons and violent nation building do not exist as back non-presumption. One, the role of the balance to vote for the ballot as Black Resistance Project or J-term evidence. It says that black history nuclear movements is causing race, which creates the conditions for violence at above, but bearing witness to the 1AC is a form of post-memory that creates the conditions for successful revolutionary practice. That's 1AC. Del Sol's second chart after the presumption is racist logic that says default to the scope, which our theory of power says is based on white supremacy. Rejected team 4. We have defended a method not just had violence bad futures. Black press key to policy action motivated the civil rights movement and resistance to lynchings, which is 1AC J-term and 1AC Del Sol. Oh, there are Brooks evidence 1. This is a disarm good card, not debating nukes good. We will concede this piece of evidence, which takes out our dissent, but with the caveat that how we debate disarm matters, which will be on framework. I've already insert the highlight below the Connolly evidence 1. We will concede that education matters, but the type of education we receive matters more. Their education is bad. Next, their evidence is about pro-duck and cover drills, which we have impact turned as racist in our present no way evidence because it excludes black people, which means you should reject the team. We've re-highlighted it in yellow. Now the next card was the Myers evidence. No link. We have described anti-blackness as a structural condition. Abolition fails card. No, this is about nuclear weapons, not civil defense, which means no link. But also their last piece of the evidence says that NFU is good. NFU is counterinsurgency. Atchison, reforms is not advanced with race, definitely constant repackaging on justice or never actually taking a reform. Provide solution to governments continue to put everyone in pro-nuclear or states denying harms defer action. Mark at defer action. Now go to the advantage counterplan. 1. Perm do both. Second perm. Some people should do the advantage counterplan. Cruel optimism that said U.S. would never do the plan as evidenced by history of the overview. 48 acres and a mule never came, and so won't the counterplan. 3. Links to net benefit. They still fund the projects. 4. No net benefit. 5. Does not solve the affirmative. Does not challenge civil defense logics in this space and does not challenge nuclear weapons. 6. Making your ethical commitments to the liberation of PLC condition as a voting issue because it functionalizes their suffering for a ballot. 7. Government feel bad. Does not give us the skills to know what we as people can do to demand radical action. 8. No link to the private banks. Still, black women getting funds from private corporations does not mean a defense of private banks. Instead, it is a form of subversive resistance where you take some schools and redistribute it back to your communities. But 9. Criminalization voter. Analogizing the material grassroots work that cedar resistance does to lift black homeless people out of their conditions to crashing the stock market in 08 is a civil defense logic that views black people as subversive for issues they don't cause. That is the present 08 evidence that is racist and uses the same logics like black people as thugs are the reason crime is so high or undocumented people stealing jobs is the reason why the economy crashes, etc. The nuclear energy dissat. 1. Case outweighs civil defense is an apocalyptic force that causes metaphysical violence to blackness in order to secure white futures. 2nd, no link. Their evidence just says non-nuclear weapon states are mad that nuclear weapon states are not disarming nukes. There is no sentence in the first evidence that says more disarm would equal more spreading nuclear energy, which means you should not do the work of assuming it for them because it is not there. 3rd, no link. We have not disarmed nuclear weapons. We have disarmed the civil defense logic behind them. 4, turn upholding the status quo makes proliferation of nukes around the world more likely. Their own evidence says that non-nuclear weapon states are mad that nuclear weapon states are disarming, which is what motivates countries in the past like North Korea to back out of the NPT and India to not be a part of it in the first place. Next, the link turn Afrofuturism solves because it acknowledges the violence that nuclear weapons and nuclear forces broadly do to people in the real world, which means we have link turned it because it would also challenge the logic behind nuclear energy as a civilizing force. Next, universalizing discourse. This that they've conceded our backing of evidence that says that the universalizing discourse of extinction as something that is always in the future but not now excludes the forms of social violence that occur, which means they whitewash the entire movement and it cross applies to the CAPK and the CAPK as well. In order for them to win this that they have to win in deterrence logic is real because they justify the status quo, which means civil defense. This that nuclear weapons require black deaths to protect the U.S. code as white sovereign nations target black cities first because the U.S. justifies suburbanization on the idea that white families could afford to escape the bomb that's hurling. Nuclear corporations like Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin use black prisons, labor, and toxic facilities are placed near black communities, all of which spill down to deterrence, large policing prisons, black neighborhoods, etc. That's hurling. Now, the Cap K1 perm do both. Afrofuturism is a necessary performance to mobilize the energy towards building black futures. The all can filter that energy through the Harvey evidence. Second perm do the Afrofuturism builds dual power like the organizations we listed. 3 yes perms and a method debate synthesis is good. It innovates advocacy and uncovers forgotten black history is now possible through the auto loan. Next, optimized clash, forcing a false trade-off creates unnecessary infighting results in ahistorical generalizations that are unhelpful for real-world organizing. 4, not defending a specific organization. A voter makes negative articulation and the block impossible to predict unless spike out a 2AC offense, causing stress queue and terrible debates that the negative can just switch out. No organizations every debate. Next, making your ethical commitments to the liberation of people of color from capitalism conditional as a voter. I can also apply that from the advantage counterplan. Next, link turn atomic Afrofuturism mobilizes people and results engagement, takes out the music link. I already provided the examples above. Next, post memory dissat. The one to see simultaneous embrace of accountability mechanisms and forgetting a black woman responsible for creating those internal checks reproduces the disposability of blackness as needed but not wanted. That's Hurley from Ida B. Wells to Mamie Till Mobley. The apps post memory work of Afrofuturism is necessary to strengthen anti-capitalist movements and also acts as a mobilization. Dissat to the next, universalizing discourse. Dissat climate change is existential as opposed to already here in the form of segregation, nuclear facilities, lack of access to clean water puts anti-blackness to the backdrop and organizing struggle on anti-black foundations. Next, the Harvey alternative. Remember cross-sex, 0 pragmatic demand, 0 policy action, 0 reasons why secure black futures means you should automatically assume that it has 0 solvents because Grace does not know what they were talking about. Framework 1, counter definition. Subpoint A, impact turn U.S. We some people challenges by exclusion. James 17, the rich and under country define the use of Jews. We some people as opposed to be the people that challenges the white. Normative agenda to be the people remote. Subpoint B, disarm means to abolish American heritage. No date to abolish armed forces. Next, their definition of disarm is over eliminating races and debates in the literature over particular weapons and crowds out substance by letting the negative get away with generic deterrence. This is against disarm as which all their terminal impacts. Next, the clash. Next, subpoint C, nuclear forces include infrastructure and communication. Cornell law no date nuclear forces include nuclear weapons and collapses and nuclear command and control communication infrastructure facilities including personnel control operation and maintenance. Next, forces can include discourse, which is 23. Discourse to find nuclear weapons are cultural outbreaks which provide meaning for forces, social, economic, and cultural systems which reduce them. Next, we meet our interpretation on 2 levels. 1, civil defense is nuclear communication, press and 08. Second is that infrastructure includes civil defense. Hurley 20 applied before nuclear 78. In lock expanding archive against the MIC when the community's most vulnerable infrastructure violence involved in civil defense to go announce waste as a weapon. Next, we meet that answer because we some people disarm the nuclear forces of defense. Second, extend the counter interpretation. Affirmation engage the revolution to a radical point, which means affirming the restriction of U.S. nuclear force through a critical perspective. This includes abolition of E-radio, international Afrofuturism, post-colonial revolt, and then excludes apps that don't restrict nuclear forces. Subpoint A, limits teams that don't defend a reduction of nuclearism can still lose to T, and the process of limiting nuclear forces outweighs whatever limits it said they have to the actors. Subpoint B, negative ground is better. You can still read case terms like deterrence that says as long as you win a link and justify the theory. Counter performance and our generic case are better like futurism versus pessimism, dual power versus anarchism, landback versus grounded relationality because they promote liberation strategies over top-down approaches that re-entrench power relations. 3, extend the net benefits of epistemological growth. Teams uncover the forgotten histories under the nuclear color line and learn to carve out counterpublics that leads to activism such as Taos and TL, creating looters for a beautiful struggle, Phyllis and amendments, starting up immigration law firms, etc. and performance spilling out that leads to subject formation because KVK debates over the course of the season force you to rethink your perspectives about the world because the type of research we force you to do prior to the round is necessary to have critical forms of clash. The fairness arguments. 1, colorblindness, this have procedural fairness and limits are standards that always break debates in favor of white upper class because our definitions for what is fair can only be created by those who had access to defining it in the first place. Second, civil defense. This said the fear that chaos ruin the activities of fusion with the fear of styles of debate coded as black. Afrofuturist demands that you recognize the linkages between conservative right-wing backlash to PRO and the use of fairness as, or the framework as an infrastructure of violent racist deterrence that demonize the ability for historically working class minority debaters to envision new futures of debate for themselves. When you see Hurley, Preston, and Michis argue that when this nuclear pedagogy is taught in the classroom and it gets exports to create racially exclusive spaces in times of crisis, it produces academic discussions that always seek to reformulate nuclear posture at the expense of black life. 3, prefer liberatory fairness. The counter-interpretation expands the circle of fairness to allow for diversity or arguments that lets in marginalized debaters explore different fields to export knowledge into anti-racist action. You should prefer reasonability on fairness, error on the side of inclusion because over-limiting the topic is racially exclusive. Clash arguments. 1, hegemonic anti-nuclearism dissat. Their division of ground results in dissat counterblend debates that happen on the same hegemonic terrain, and if you were to determine sole purpose, still promote the U.S. over people of color, and the oversaturation of top-down articles causes the game to be rigged in favor of traditional arguments that make winning the critique an uphill battle. Second, universal humanity dissat. Debates under the model of summer universalizing impact of extinction, which ignores how the effects of nuclear war disproportionately impact people of color, which was the example of the Brooks evidence that they read on case 3, atomic genocide dissat. The ground they want promotes a race to extinction, which requires the direct construction of racialized others in order to imagine who used the bomb against, which sustains an implicit forming racial hierarchy where we learn the skills of policing who should and should not get a bomb instead of learning the skills to question racism and hand it on. Instead, we can take to challenge racist activities. When they go for a big example subjectivity change push in the 2 and T, you should understand that the way we debate definitely does influence the way we think about debate and who should and should not be included. Evidenced by the fact that we are in a round robin where every single time we head into a round, we get fucked up of judges where me and Curtis have to fight for our life and provide a minute of extra 1AC judge instruction just to have equal footing, in the debates proves that there is subject formation at least in this space. Doesn't matter what happens outside here because it is more important to transform the space in which we debate it now.
Okay, we had 1338, right?
Mhm.
Okay, let me just. Okay, are you good?
Yep.
My first question is about the Hurley evidence, or just more broadly the argument that you get rid of nuclear infrastructure. The evidence talks about the nuclear military industrial complex. So given that, does the 1AC affect like the nuclear industrial complex, or like how is that true?
So the civil defense logic that Hurley is describing is two things. First, it is a discourse that teaches us to militarize our minds in favor of nuclear deterrence. So that's the one way we refuse civil defense as a discourse logic. As an infrastructure, civil defense requires the disinvestment of black future. So that looks like suburbanization and the quote-unquote ghettoization of black communities, which results in things like gentrification, black communities lacking access to things like
But, like,
healthcare.
also,
A question
it's
about
not-
the
it's-
former part of your answer though, just to be clear, like make sure I understood the first part. So you imagine a world where everyone's like in terms of our minds, where like military planners no longer want to like build up nuclear.
So that's
or
not just
local
that's
communities.
one facet of
Right.
civil
Okay, that's the
defense,
facet
right?
I wanted to
Like
ask about. Yeah.
the overarching theme when it comes to civil defense, right, is that we always depict what is a threat to white life, therefore it's something to securitize against, which is what the 1AC talks about, where they mention people who have died at the hands of civil defense because people viewed them as threats, changing their way of life, which means that it's top down through that logic, not just like military planners like change their view once you go out.
The DA, I don't understand the last couple arguments about why the DA needs to win that nuclear deterrence is true when the DA has said that pro-life is bad.
You have in order to vote on a dissad, Tripp has to justify that the status quo is a better option, which requires you to justify the existence of nuclear deterrence logics that exist.
But why
in the
is that
status
true?
quo.
Like no one's read an impact to like status quo nuclear deterrence causes like a global nuclear war or something like that, right?
But
so
we
like
have
why is
said
it
that
true?
nuclear deterrence requires anti-blackness, such as black prison labor being used
like
to
we
build the
could
nuclear
agree that maybe like nuclear deterrence is collapsing now, it doesn't work, it doesn't do anything, but like the US disarming is bad because nuclear energy is bad, right? Like I don't understand why those two aren't part of, like why those two
In
are
order
necessarily
for you to
intertwined.
justify the nuclear energy dissad, you have to justify that the status quo is a better world, which we have said it is not because of anti-blackness.
Okay,
You also said
that
disarmament is
argument
good
makes
on a different page.
Okay, that argument makes
It's
sense.
disarm with civil defense logic.
Well, okay, yeah, separate point. Okay, I'm gonna prep.
Yeah, very good. I'm gonna use the bathroom.
And there's one card. I'm gonna send it out, and then I'm also gonna use.
What's the order?
It's gonna be T then case.
I mean, I guess the
What's up?
Are there cards?
There was one I sent it.
This is the only card?
Just the Richie card, yeah.
Of course it's not.
Unplug one. Or actually, you can use one.
For sure.
Yeah.
Let me stop the card.
Yeah, just let me know whenever y'all are good. Okay. Cool. I'll start. Topical apps must restrict the United States' nuclear forces. Our impacts outweigh one clash. Negation matters. Most of the reasons the activities that can be garnered from other venues to choose that clash has to come first. The opportunity cost of sacrificing it is always inherently higher than anything else. Predictable stasis point grounded in the resolution is key for nuanced debates on both sides, where teams who help well research stances and debate the best versions of their opponents is cultivate tactics of argumentation that teaches debaters to hypothesize sort through evidence to set their validity, and then develop third and fourth line responses, which makes us better arguers and researchers regardless of what we advocate for. Second, fairness. Competition is inevitable and good to actualize any benefit to any model where both teams must be prepared to engage each other, which means that a prerequisite their overstretches and negatives usually makes it impossible to predict the one which creates a moral hazard where the app runs to the margins of the topic and the negative is behind from the get-go and encourages app conditionality and creates the amounts to the outside bias so the office gets a role for the negative. The ballot cannot resolve their office but can resolve procedural fairness. Topicality is not a referendum on the introduction of their argument, rather a win condition. You can agree with the UNEC but still vote negative. Now their definitions. First, the United States is collective action by the federal government. That's the open evidence. There's many ways in which people might relate to the resolution, but it's impossible to predict those relationships, which is why the resolution is the closest we come to stasis. We, some people, does not challenge whiteness. There's no warrant in their evidence for why that's the case, but it certainly explodes limits because it justifies international private act for fiat. Dartmouth could bring an India NGO if Cal reads the Australians against nukes. Have any movement or group of people or individuals become topical. Second, disarmament means to get rid of all nuclear weapons. That's the topic where I was going to abolish any armed force links to our limits. Offense Northwestern reads an app that abolishes SROs and reads an app from the high school 2018 education topic. Michigan brings the disarm NRA app with the guns bad advantage that is unnegatable. Apps can abolish the police, Navy, Army, Marines, etc. Over limiting outreach, under limiting our reach is not generic deterrence to but specific disagreements with the process and product of disarmament. Having a DA to say is important for the negative, which they eliminate. Third is resolved and applies established by law. That's words and phrases. Fourth is should and modifies restrict nuclear forces in the resolution, which 1 and 2 DeRosa says can only be done by Congress. Fifth is nuclear forces and reverse delivery platforms like bombers, ballistic missiles, weapons like ICBMs and subs, as well as command and control. That's 1 and 2 Roberts do not meet their Cornell evidence because it says that the app must modify nuclear forces governed by the NSA and DoD. Nothing about discourse does that. They must abolish all of these to meet their interpretation. Forces specifically does not include discourse. The Tweezy Richie evidence is about nuclear weapons, not forces, and just says that they derive meaning from political context. That's not a definition, just a statement that the purpose of nukes varies. Describing any discourse as topical obviously explodes limits because the threshold for the topical one he sees a metaphor. Michigan analogizes nukes to the healthcare topic and recycles the 2018 topic. Dartmouth says nukes are anti-competitive and brings back antitrust. Now counter radical stasis links to our offense. One, there's no right line. What does radical implementation mean? Each person has a different threshold for what is and is not radical. Disarmament could be radical for the DoD, just like abolishing civil defense would be a feasible goal for protesters. It is inherently subjective meaning. Makes the topic limitless because all the one needs to find is a one-liner justification for why their app is radical. An easy task given the status quo is pro-nuke. Second is any attempt to define this as a double term with their offense because it limits out alternate visions of radicality. Third, they don't solve limits. Teams defending nuclearism won't lose to T because there's no stable limiting definition of what it means to reduce nuclearism. That was above on definitions. The you get deterrence arguments are wrong. There's zero weapons DA under their model. Absence prep one reason for why one aspect of the police and militarization is bad, but then again must have a defense of every single one to beat back against all apps, which is an untenable burden. Also, the last time we read deterrence, he said reading it was a reason to protect the team, which proves that you don't agree with this argument. The next argument is the KDK debates argument. The link turn is unbeatable. One of the best K debates you've ever judged are those where links are specific and clashes robust in their version of the topic. There's no prep K links. The creates an in-depth considerations of different methods. Two ways will choose to run to the margins of what is included to no link or write unbeatable permutations to the negatives K, which means that we still will not debate the most meaningful parts of the K. Second is our model solves better. Reform K debates are better because they better simulate real-world opposition, but theirs encourages teams to turn towards large impact turns and backfiles like hedge good, which is more violent than net benefits. There's no epistemological growth. There must be subjectivity defense to win. This clash also turns it. Rigorous testing why a predictable stasis point and switching sides ensures that we can defend our positions from all angles, improve its accuracy, and equips us with advocacy skills. They have listed examples of debaters that have left debate and gone on to be activists, but have not explained a causal connection for why debate is key. But debate is a bad site for activism. One is truth testing. Debate is a bad site because the arguments that win debates are not necessarily true. Battles do not correlate with truth, otherwise Spark wouldn't win a single debate. The technical prowess of debaters matters far more than the truth behind their arguments. Their model attaches truth to debates and battles, which massively increases the risk that bad strategies are exported, whereas good ones are discarded. Second is trade-off. Their model forces debaters to invest their time and labor in an activity whose connection to activism is extremely tenuous. Joining an activist group is much less burdensome, yet much more rewarding avenue for activism, but the trade-off their model locks in is dissuades truly radical politics in favor of faux ballot signaling that corrects politics to be palatable for white judges. Now, the next benefit, the subjectivity stuff, the content of round 6 of the Dartmouth round robin does not shape our subjectivity. Nobody leaves this round thinking that abolition is a good idea or topicality is the truth, and there are too much larger odd causes like school, family, friends, and religion. There's two filters. One is switching sides. Debate forces us to negate what we affirm, what we read. In one debate, we negate the very next debate. Second is fairness and clash terms as the process far outweighs the content. Debates when we are in round what drives decision making is not an unflinching commitment to the truth of our argument, but rather the desire to deploy research to win, something that neither the 1EC nor their counter model can change because things like switching sides and competition are not something that are resolved by their model. Third, their offense is about out of the round, which is important. Conversations in the squad room are talking about debates with friends is vastly different than subject formation in a round because once the 1EC starts, every claim formed, card read, and argument discarded is driven by debate's competitive incentives. Their model cannot solve this. None of their evidence about nuclear subjectivity is contextualized to these unique phenomena in debate. The colorblind, which is not fairness, is not colorblind. Its preservation is necessary to actualize any benefit to any model of debate. It is not rigid in favor of the white upper class, and there's no warrant for why that is the case. The civil defense is that framework. Fairness and procedurals are not weaponizations or violent impositions. This argument is ahistorical. T has also previously been read against white pillow teams to preserve a role for the negative engagement, which disproves T as inherently white. Its previous violent forms do not mean that every time T is read it is violent. Second is none of their examples are intrinsic to our reading of topicality, proven by the fact that we regularly go for T against policy teams. Any attempt to differentiate framework from T against policy after white pillow teams bolsters our no link argument, because framework has also evolved over time to engage the apps often through topical version and switching side explanations or clash. That used to be no case, but are now about strategy building. The threshold for winning is extremely high because the events would have the utterance of topicality in this individual debate somehow carries with it the entirety of T's exclusionary past and liberatory fairness. Arguments are being straight turned. One, their model destroys minority participation because the burden of preparation is untenable. Competitive equity is the largest internal link to this because it ensures an equal playing field in the ground. Second, is the ballot cannot solve this. Nothing about a ballot for Long Beach makes participation more likely. Before they win the impact, they must win the internal link. Most people outside the 500 debaters and coaches involved in the college circuit don't care. We get constantly confused on campus. From our trial or model U and explaining tab room to parents is a nightmare. We'll all go back to after this tournament to friends who have no idea what we do. The premise is that activity little and this individual debate contains the capacity to make meaningful change is zero, and thinking that it does is truly optimistic and trades off with activism on the ground in terms of offense. Reasonability, they're not reasonable. That was or offense about reasonability is a bad model. It invites judge intervention, which creates a slippery slope because anything can be construed as reasonably reasonable. Committing in terms is better because it ensures that we have debates that yield debates a year's potential value. Third is that over-limiting is not a form of whitewashing. Their interexposed limits, which also cuts out the ability to meaningfully engage with the content they say is important. That turns burnout because an unlimited topic forces black and brown debaters to engage in the labor of rubbing countless affirmatives. The hegemonic nuclearism is that it's wrong. The nature of switch side mandates a critique of hegemonic nuclearism, and so does the topic because it is in the opposite direction of nuclear deterrence. Second is process debates are good. We have offensive arguments on cases that support this, but the nitty-gritty details of stakeholder decision-making in nuclear policy is vital for actions because it teaches us to navigate a complex field with accuracy to maximize the success of policies, which comes secondary to subjectivity, but it still holds governmental actors like Lockheed accountable. Third is topical version solved. Their authors say that an NFU is necessary to step towards a short-term nuclear war and redefine their justifications for nuclear weapons. The negative could respond with a key that says decreasing nuclear militarization increases conventional militarization, which he and 40 cents or permanent intervention not a substitute for, and the goal and NFU against the political force nuclear weapons eventually nuclear war fighting concept of nuclear deterrence versus transfer narrow to be running the world of nuclear weapons for such as the NFU no weapons considered religion goal also deals with nuclear weapons will have so much more diminishing military force. This evidence is the answer to the permutation. There's no universal humanity. This has had nothing but a model of extinction scenarios over and over again. They must not only win subjectivity to win this, but also that people will not read those arguments against the one you see under their model of debate, which still valorizes universal humanity. The TVA disproves this because debates do not need to be about large-scale extinction impacts, but the ways in which nukes are intertwined with the legacy of colonialism. This also answers the atomic genocide decide. Nothing about our model inculcates threat construction or the skill of policing, switching sides, breaks down dogmatic biases, but the resolution is in the opposite direction. Now, the judge instruction stuff, just because they need to provide judge instruction does not mean that debate shapes subjectivity or this individual debate aligns us with some ideological position. It's fucked up that there aren't more critical judges at the round robin, but the solution is not this ballot and thinking that it is cruelly optimistic. Reject the twinsies judge instruction. Tripp, do you really think that a ballot for Long Beach in round 6 of this round robin somehow translates to affirming the entire legacy of black and native debate? One, if we win framing, that's a reason to invert this calculus and vote negative because our model is better for the debates that they have described as valuable. Voting negative doesn't mean that you have to arbitrate which forms of testing are good. Just that testing in and of itself is good, which maximizes through predictability. Second is they've dropped the Myerson evidence. Their model devolves into what they have criticized white judges determining strategies for black folk by voting for them. The logic is very, very bad because they've used the ballot as a remediation tool, which turns strategy building because it means practice begins and ends in debate. One T. Wilder says that surrender is a form of melancholic white leftism that actively siphons energy away from truly radical politics outside of space through a pontifical persuasion. Case. Vote negative on presumption. Nothing that 1AC can do nothing that 1AC does can change the bottom of anti-blackness, and they have not proposed what this future looks like. Presumption is not racist. It is a criticism of their argument that they should propose a solution. It's not a reason to reject the team. It also requires them winning T that our model is violent. The Brooks evidence does not take out the decide Brooks is about educational settings where people discuss about disarmament. They do not establish the internal link that their discourse about nuclear weapons. They also have double turned themselves because the 1AC says nukes bad, but the 2AC on T says that debating about nukes is bad. We have responded to both of those, which says does not take out the decide. The Connolly evidence says education matters. It is an even if statement will win that process precedes content and subjectivity precedes that. But mapping out our politics matters. How does alignment in here translate to galvanizing movements out there? Previous examples like the civil rights movement are true, but what specific thing does the 1AC do to galvanize? There are evidences about people writing about journalism. It does not make sense that alignment in Hanover somehow galvanizes black women building in Baltimore. And even if it does, what does that galvanization produce? Does it change the trajectory of these movements? Does it create new strategies? All of those questions should precede your ballot, and any role of the ballot is arbitrary and self-serving and links to our fairness office on T.
Sorry, is my Dartmouth sweater in here? Is that, we were sitting there, so is that yours on the back of your chair, or is that?
Pretty sure it's mine. Yeah, that's what's
Wait.
Sorry.
Sorry to interrupt.
Let me
Goodbye.
just move this.
11:30.
Are you good? Okay. What was that first response to the Connolly evidence?
On case?
Yeah.
The Connolly evidence, well, the answer was just like it's an even if statement, like all our arguments on T about like subjectivity, process coming first, etc. precede this evidence. So if you win that, then this evidence is an answer to the case.
Okay, that's fine. The stuff about convene, like have conversations outside of the round, like what does that solve?
Well, so I mean, sort of like when there's this moment in the 2EC where you're sort of like it's like really fucked up that there aren't any critical judges at the round robin. Our argument is just like, you know, there's an important conversation to have and one that should obviously change, but there's nothing about the ballot in this individual debate
But
that
it's
can
like
change
it's
that.
like we did have a conversation. In fact, it's like conversation kind of because the stuff about Facebook was posted on on an anonymous account complaining about the lack of diversity of this round robin. So a conversation was had and nothing changed. So it's like, what do you think is the next step?
Well, like what I don't think is the next step is the ballot in this debate. But what I do think is the next step is that conversation shouldn't start and end in Facebook, obviously. Like I think there needs to be a conversation had at this round robin, external to these debates, about what can be done to increase critical participation, not only in terms of teams that are competing, but also judges.
Next stuff about the no subjectivity shift and how things are motivated by like out of round things. It's like, do you not think that the type of research we do going into a round like affects the way we approach the debate?
And like
I
us
think we have
debating about it.
Approaches the way we debate. Like, what do you mean? Like, I think I have a couple different arguments for why the nature of how topic research operates.
For example, when we traditionally also approach the topic through your definitions, it's like we're thinking about NFU, we're thinking about a deterrence disset on the negative, we're thinking about.
Well, so like one is like I disagree with that characterization of our topic, but second is just like,
but it's like
the
it's
topic.
True, though. It's like
I disagree. Like I think that there are ways to envision this topic, and debates have happened about this topic that are not just about the deterrence disset over and over again. Like Emory has not even extended the deterrence disset against the policy team. Like we've done it once this year.
Assurances or whatever.
Right.
like come on. I mean, there's like such a vast variety of negative arguments that we say that we have extended, and like this idea that like there's one unifying vision of the topic we disagree with. But to answer your question, my argument is just like the nature of the topic means that what we affirm in one debate, we negate the very next debate.
The nature of the topic. It's like, why is your approach to the topic the natural part of it? Like, why can't?
Well, so when I say the nature of the topic, that also implicates your model of debate, because your model of debate does not say that just like the idea of affirmative and negative sides go away.
I think this is probably my last question. The reasonability stuff about like reasonability invites judge intervention. Do you not think that judge intervention already exists regardless? Like if we say reasonability.
Obviously, no. I agree. Like certain judges are biased, etc. But
Okay,
I think it invites judge.
Why do you think they're biased?
Let me finish the question.
No. Why do you think judges are biased?
Because certain judges like certain types of arguments.
Why?
Certain judges. Maybe it has to do with conversations that they've had previously. Maybe it has to do with the way that they might have debated. Like it just like.
Okay, so does that not prove subjectivity change?
No, it doesn't, because our argument is that this individual debate.
He literally just said.
Okay, but not. Whatever.
Is that because they debated?
Or did you have or nothing? Okay, the one in ours is sent.
Okay, 8:25 left for Ash.
Everyone's good for an order.
Yeah.
It's the advantage counter plan, the cap K, and then the DS.
You said advantage, the cap K.
And then the nuclear energy plan.
Wait, sorry. Counter plan, the critique, the disavow?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you got it. And then I sent some cards.
Alright, we're good.
Okay, everyone's good. The counterplan solves the cases that benefit nuclear energy and the internal benefit. The counterplan engaged in a host of effective measures to address the housing crisis, gentrification, while aligning with the left liberatory movements 20 that are good one and the suburbs. In terms of the public land development, that means communities will have access to homes and will be able to decide for themselves what happens to their communities' private land development and hedge funds buying up every mortgage. Zeros are related to solve the state's government intervention that solves the evidence describes the zones of sacrifice created by the bomb and white place suburbs. The reason why housing crisis has come about the counterplan eliminates those who increase the minimum wage price in Brussels housing. The article says that high unemployment and poor housing are bombs that erupt every day through the lines with the exact same liberatory movements 20 but does so in a way that crowds out private lending. Those movements are forced to rely on predatory dangerous securing loans from private banks, allow the banks to quash the advocacy of the movements. The counterplan crowds out private funding and gives the movement government unconditional debt-free subsidies, the negative outweighs in terms of case one private banking is predatory for left liberation. They condition their loans with massive interest rates and only provide funding for the movements that need to collect debt and incarcerate those who are unable to pay back their loans. That's especially true of housing interest rates. Of sort of incentivizing banks to target black borrowers for subprime mortgages, even when they are qualified for better. Our evidence is comparative. Public banks run by communities or local and democratically governed and provide more affordable housing. That's vital. Second, private funding causes the housing crisis of 08. Banks like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs gave out subprime mortgages, which crowded out public sector funding and caused a ripple of risk-taking that spread upon UI. That turns the case 08 caused a massive spike in gentrification, unavailable housing, and probably unlivable economic conditions. Third, big banks funding social movement skills. Board 21 pledges may not be altered to the evidence on clear state. Pillage of giving translates a break. Tax free corporate America. The money has been to communities where it's going. Has to be allocated. Makes sense. Announced commitments but unclear general from the impact on communities. Color so not transfer or measurable jointly have. And there's going to be about how this money falling into the time and not really pledges are from diversity capital corporations again action that are not in common with probably making things have contributed for perpetuating inequality by lending charging people who have high interest rates and fees and closing a short number of locations in minority neighborhoods. Permutation of both and promotes and people links the benefit of disarm bad. The one he seems pushed towards nuclear abolition attempts at a sensible U.S. nuclear superiority which enables nuclear energy. The cruel optimism it does not link the counterplane to government action, which is good for debate and doesn't mean we think the government will actually do anything. But this links to them because if it's true, this would never promote fair housing. That's presumption. Doesn't link to the benefit. Doesn't touch the nuclear arsenal. It solves the debate space offense by aligning ourselves with a good strategy. But if they go for debate, solve the topicalities. Supercharged conditionality is good when logic. The only will neg is through the one he sees through the counterplane. Does not prove the plan is good. Their constructed determination kills education, and particularly two flex the neg is reactive which proves turn which we return their offense only condo overcomes research or deficit. It's too easy being outside by spin counts. Zero burden for case explanation. 3 no link to their offense. Our commitment to others is not conditional because we didn't think that strategically we should have to extend the K or the counterplane. Government fiat is not bad. It's keeping the granite quotes and better skills to understand his horrible policy. The model is worse, but it's a reason to reject the argument. Yes, the link is clear. One, when he says unequivocally align themselves with black women build other liberatory movements. Those movements receive funding from private banks like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs. They did not include any account of this in the one he see, nor do they have a reason for why the app would change that. But the counterplane does too. That's dangerous. Uncritical alignment without first asking ethical questions about where the funding comes from ensures that movements fail to common strategy of Wall Street to provide funding to movements such as they can exert influence. There's no criminalization. DA one, our criticism is of the banks themselves. The government, when we say that caused 2008 movements are forced to rely on predatory funding from big banks because government has failed in providing public subsidies. Our counterplane recognizes that and says government should rectify to that. Counterplane uncritically aligns with the movement and agrees with what they advocate for, which is resilient. We've provided a counter proposal that increases salience and solidity of their demands of the movement. 3 clash turns and outweighs our offense even if they when their counterplane is bad for attempting to clash with the one you see, which doesn't have the same levels of competition for the benefit outweighs even if our relationship to the movement isn't perfect. You should be willing to risk it to prevent nuclear colonialism. Worst case protect the argument of the team. The cat can see the purpose of a competition and overpowered under their model of debate. There's no offense. They haven't explained how the app resulted in overthrow capitalism or effective state-based reforms. I'll answer the universal discourse DA argument on the DA, not specifically in the organization. It's a reason to reject the argument of the team. We described alt and cross-sects about state action, not one particular organization. Now the nuclear energy DA, it outweighs and massively turns the case when he sees commitment to disarm the U.S. of its nukes to revitalize global nuclear regime, such as the MET, which facilitates mass transfer and export of nuclear energy materials and tech to impacts versus proliferation ferment is the most robust statistical analysis today and concludes the revitalizing the frame MET significantly reliable proliferation of non-nuclear weapons because it offers a legal cover for tech and export transfers to countries which repurpose it for nukes that ensures miscalculations like radioactive colonialism. Nuclear energy is traditionally linked to violence against indigenous communities in the United States, India, Australia, Canada, and others who uranium money that reapplies extractist logics which have detrimental health effects from radiation storage leaks and intergenerational injustice. That's when C Hoffman dropped impact. Third, it turns when C solvency mechanism, even if their movement can disarm moments of telos ends their proliferation radioactive colonialism drains activist energy, making it impossible to mobilize against the totality of their impacts. Fourth case is not outweighs Act 18. Construction, reconstruction, studies, legal, social, economic, and cultural components, combination, Icelandic theme, race, natural knowledge, the human is roughly viewed by the potential has the potential to change. Construction, although any resistance has unpredictable consequences because of the interpreted, supported, and duplicated other people who affected humans are mirrors of social institutions, thoughts, and actions of other individuals. I'll answer the Brooks evidence from case. There's no double turn. It says that we should be educated about nuclear risk. We agree that nuclear risks are bad. It doesn't provide a terminal impact with the disarm can solve, but they drop the second part of this that it says that nuclear weapons are bad, which is consistent with Brooks and says that we should prevent their further spread, which voting out prevents. And yes, linked to nuclear energy, a strong MET makes global nuclear energy 100%. One is CW and indicates where result and calls for internationalization of nukes of nuke energies as a standard weapon material would be repurposed domestically and exported globally along with tech and expertise in the construction of nuclear energy plants. The 1AC does link one entanglement disarming the civil defense pedagogy requires disarming nuclear weapons. That Nietzsche's evidence indicates that white civil defense pedagogy permeates every component of nuclear weapons. That removes the justifications that uphold those necessarily entails doing with nuclear weapons. 1AC Nietzsche agrees. We've inserted it in blue. Second, in strategies, Nietzsche clearly calls for nuclear disarmament and says the politics that galvanize results in it. We've inserted that evidence in blue as well. Third is movement. So only whether Harvey evidence endorses are specifically geared towards nuclear disarmament, which we also inserted for metaphors today as an impact from 20C's connection between nuclear forces and civil defense. When evil indicates that any perceived reduction in nukes is met with moves that are perceived alignment with Article 6 MPT coalescing politics around the metaphor of nuclear reduction gets perceived by senior military officials, global leaders as either an actual or pre-rude to material reductions in nukes, which locks in an MPT revival. They have not read evidence that the status quo results in widespread proliferation or that the absolves a link. No answer to 1C from an evidence which I extended above. Disarm brings back the MPT stronger than ever to largest internal link because US nuclear hypocrisy in Article 6 and failure to nuclearize has destroyed its credibility. There's no universalizing discourse. DA prioritize extinction when irreversibly death that is in supervised nukes for I wish Dartmouth always go to ethics, killing everyone for ethics, just by genocide news are independently painful, disproportionate harm, marginalized populations, wars, no strong structural balance, and just by domestic militarism. This was evidence dropped on case in the 1 in C3 consequentialism is good and inevitably can simultaneously when their impact to the extinction outweighs any impact a person makes size in a cost benefit analysis, which is inherently utilitarian. Poor extinction is unique, preventing extinction worse than preventing it as a weak claim is good. Finally, we don't need to win the nuclear deterrence is inherently good, but we will defend the status quo if we go for the status quo and the DA that does not endorse nuclear corporations' use of block prison labor, but we made turns case and impact framing arguments that have been conceded. Extinction is unique. Coles in 2018. Receptivity of vulnerability, risk information, expertise, and a difference to be more sometimes for opponents, radical democracy, rallies, sometimes scholars, sometimes all people facing bone types, we represent black people, sometimes this members of the white US. This encourages upon wheeler sense and collective white subjectivities or habitats and subtle subjectivity apart from political class and yes, do nothing in terms of peasants or opportunity about seizing opportunities. Mark that seizing opportunity.
So you just didn't read anything after 4, right?
Correct. Yeah, I didn't read.
You said 820?
825.
And I read 4 when I marked it. The close and closing part.
And the only TVA was like the NFU one, right?
Mm-hmm.
215. While I'm tying my shoe, the order is gonna be case, the advantage counterplan, the disad, the critique, and then framework.
You say he's in a dock or
No.
okay.
Very cranberry.
It's in the killer plastic.
No, I got so much sleep last night, I still need caffeine. Alright, Tripp, Emory, Diego. Cool.
The one they see perform the atomic effort futurism for disarming and civil defense logic in the spaces of process the enemies of we connect, the future of nuclear violence in the past of slavery in order to vision new world of black power liberation where the need for nuclear weapon and violent nation building do not longer exist at the back of the evidence presumption answering it one day. Drop you need to question black history means that it gets to raise the role of balance and vote for the black resistance project bearing with this is an order except drop all the example nuclear jab and lynching and mammy till the civil rights movement also the nuclear well policy good sub one at the top they drop the voter on calmly reinstarting the highlight that is the pro ducking cover drill from the past to the present way evidence says this racist and kickback people out because it's now seen as a worthy topicality is not become for it because it's about the scholarship, different end of the debate, and the implication it has is a dissad to the moral debate whether traditional nuclear advocacy that results in racist exclusion. Remember, zero words on particular war. I mean, they dropped a voter and not, no, do not let them come back for this reason to reject the team. They do not do the work of reconnecting the flow for them. They only answer the double turn in the book, not the commonly evidence. Also, two, for double turn and perfect on with the case stuff because it said disarm is good, and we were perfect on the reason to reject the team. We are nuclear advocacy, drop the advantage counterplan, go to now one permutation. We some people to do the advantage counterplan, drop, not separate. We do the whole app minus the part of the actor who the dissad use whenever we do it. Fiat good is not an actor or a meant to be because 48 the meal never came, so me students trust the CB also continues to answer the government fiat bad means no subsidy links to that benefit. They still front projects, drop no public things are better they fund. They drop their rate limit because they will prove that the loans they give out will still be discriminatory. So black people mean that they cannot solve the app. Also no link to the diss that drop black women getting front for private bank does not mean the defense of private bank instead of the form of subversive resistance where you can take some tool to reach back to your community, but criminalization voter also drop analogizing the material grassroots movement to see resistance to live black people at homeless and other conditions for grasping stock market into a in civil defense often that views black people subversive issue because they don't cause the personal evidence conceived it means that it's racist and Jews same like that black people are thugs, undocumented people with stealing jobs, etc. Also no internal link to this. I mean you cannot vote on this. Also go to the dissent proper now case out way civil defense laws in the populace force that justified reduce the violence on blacks is one no link drop a specific reading of their one see evidence or evidence not just say it just says non-nuclear weapon states are mad because nuclear weapon states are disarmed move. There's no sentence that says more disarm with equal more spending nuclear energy do not do the work receiving it for them also do no link we have not disarmed do we dislodged we disarmed the civil defense law behind the real highlight did not matter we defend immediately when it comes to races entanglement and they didn't defend Hurley move and end the term was dropped holy status quo proliferation news around the war makes the war more likely also no evidence is that non-nuclear states are mad because nuclear states are not disarming proved which is what motivates countries like North Korea to back out the MBT and India not be a part of it also foreign link terms solved out after featuring was resist nuclear energy also 5 universal discourse is out I'll go you can crossfire hero from the framework pay cap K go to now one perm
Framework.
One is N2AC definition, one USG is a contract economy, white supremacy, and debate, no international fiat, the evidence in the context of the U.S. second resolve mean to analyze two, disarming to abolish, nuclear force and include infrastructure, which includes civil defense, also metaphorical interpretation are good, one counter-interpretation Senate now, net benefits is that we should engage resolution to radical state supporting net benefits, one epistemology growth, the more your force get engaged, Caleb, the more you learn about history and linear pedagogy with the press makes us better people that submit balance shape sensitivity with me, that is key that answers the Balpic argument because their molecule solve for her reasonability, second revolutionary class, negative ground like history empowerment, and argument solve all their clash offense against that, argue Afro-futurism turn back, pick out a bearing. When this ends argument like secular aspects, etc., means that class does shape our subjectivity. Our engagement with this model is good because debating about it and learning about it, is key, and learning about it, debating requires nuance, so it creates epistemological growth, not just reading and prove that debate is key. Also, radical explorability. People who engage their model historically become better activists. Devon, Louis Brennan, and Louis Brennan all prove that the debate is the common denominator when it comes to subjectivity. They're going to say debate does not shape subjectivity, but one debate outweigh the alternate cause of also what we constantly matter just the process of debate, which proves that we do have subjectivity change. Also, predictability. Prep point to John Roberts Smith Evelyn group their standard one limit teams that don't defend a reduction in nucleus under our model conciliity would mean that we have some limits on our model, but also prefer reasonability over level limiting crowd some alternate nuclear apathy that will lose to the perm or negative on the white and the whitewash is the topic that proves that their limit stuff don't do anything and we're not too over limiting, but also negative ground better communication like how location like deterrence have as long as you want to link justifies theory counter performance in generic case are better because they promote liberation strategies over top down where that retrend state power also revolutionary class with the blood. The TVA one inconvergence is that teams will only read the TVA for the black debate with the pathologization and refuses to tackle the race foundation and activity the way we discussed disarm appropriation decide the NFU TVA is a form of racial revisionism and reinterject team black thought black activists fought for disarmament of civil nuclear forces not NFU mean they cannot access the app and the story of watching history and reinterject the team for doesn't solve the app ever future perform will get crowded up because team will only respond to the plan saying not sensitive yeah suicide debate one cross apply all the disapps from class education I'll do later but also seconds app will lose to the perm because disarm not competitive on negative also 5 interconvergence disapps suicide debate says that we should only read the negative we're only read the app for a negative form of interconvergence to perfect a critical politics debate is a form of civil defense law to use reject the team in favor of epistemological guys historically create better people fairness one we are impacting therefore in fairness one civil defense is sad to feel like chaos during debate is a form of civil defense they use framework as a way to relegate us kick us out because they see debate as a versus threatening and dangerous to their prejudice and violent debate which increases and encourages death for black people as a form of nuclear pedagogy for the present car that gets exploited the real life crisis and it creates a nuclear posture expense of blackness that only our model can solve is second pervert liberatory fairness drop the counter-interpretation expand the circle of fairness allow for diversity arguments that let marginalized debates to explore different fields explore knowledge augment active prefer reasonability on fairness earth side the area of inclusion because over limiting is racist go to clash now when we solve clash that was above also extend the hinge like and that including this out the ground they want to promote US people of color and promote war hard game that rigged in favor to make the K and the battle replicate the same log and new industrial common that causes light in this scenario there's no double turn they said we say reading the turns to voter because you never defended the theory you just made a racist in the case where at bigger high ground the rich we highlight one prefer are evident are the 7 years newer but also second Richie himself and for some alternate nuclear require the actor to be US mean that we impact her the understanding of the USG also 3 the counter still allows for NFU but do a critical perspective cross body humanity universal man this act debates on the Marvel and universal the impact of the cities would ignore the way that they wanted this also the critical reactivity stuff they didn't drop but I'll go to the ballot pick stuff one ballot will solve their impact people will continue in camps after this round but it turns out they're often prove that they don't care about model debate only care about themselves also Pixar voting issue reject team still labor the app and for the anti-affirmation and 2019 debate the Tripp role as a judge
before you answer the Myerson evidence like we do not assuage white guilt.
Yeah, we don't assuage white guilt. They said that we do that, but one, white judges voting does not determine people because arguments. Obviously, that's false and the false understanding of K-Lit. Arguments are based in the experience identity of debaters, not judges. Tripp, your role is to surrender, or not surrender, but to vote for a model debate that encourages epistemological growth, which includes perspective of debaters under our model.
You've got, oh, I didn't. I had 1336, I forgot to do
I think it was 850, right?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
That's what the timer that went off during somebody's speech.
Okay, let's try. I'll just write that. Yeah. Yeah. Wait, for the 2AC, did you send out the Connolly re-highlighting? But it was a Connolly card, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. You don't need to send it. Or I guess if you
Awesome.
order is going to be T, the bank's advantage kind of plan and stuff, the energy DA, and then case.
Sorry, say it.
Yeah, T, advantage counterplan, energy DA, case. Oh, did they actually? Oh, that's. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Is there any copper left in that copper?
No.
There's still a bunch left in the urn. It's still hot.
Yeah. I'll go after.
Yeah, I'll go with you. Tripp, I see you wiped out Michigan.
Sparked.
Sparked Michigan, sorry. My bad.
Wait,
Yeah.
y'all went for Spark?
My
Well,
bad.
that's what they wanted to go for, yeah. It's not really my preference, but, you know.
Hey, a win's a win.
True.
This round robin's really invited that sort of energy.
Yeah.
It always does.
I mean, compared to what Texas said yesterday.
Yeah, no, this is much more respectable. Much more serious.
Like, great. I have that.
Yeah, Spark won the TOC the year before I started high school in 2000, and it was the spring of 2001. Pace beat St. Mark's.
To ring in
It caused a
the
big
country.
brouhaha. All the other coaches were like,
That's hilarious. Ring.
Yeah.
um,
The 21st century Melissa.
You have to.
oh, right, we already did.
Okay.
T counterplan detectives.
Vote negative for a limited topic that maximizes debate's potential for class debate is not a forced choice between radical stasis and plain debate, but the benefits of separating the adverse, the competitive incentives that overdetermined debate clash must outweigh because it is the only impact of the debate. Key word, the thing that separates debate from every other activity is controversy. The clash from the debate interprets significantly worse. We lose the opportunity to have specific disagreements. The best debates inculcate third and fourth line responses on every level of argumentation and push us to think like our opponents. That is an intrinsic good because it makes us better arguers and researchers regardless of what we advocate for. It is not only external offensive massively turns case because a successful practice requires rigorous testing by a class. Two important arguments for the 1 year. You should start one before you evaluate any individual offense. You must identify whether there's a valid key offense. You can agree with the entirety of the 1 EC and still vote negative with the net benefit of resolving fairness. Both sides have agreed to speech times and speech orders for same practice that adheres to debate's competitive nature. Second, you must protect my 2 and R. The 1 year shotguns a lot of offense without answering each individual turn that we have to each individual side. If you cannot draw a line from the 2 AR warrant to the 1 AR warrant, you should strike it off your flow now. Counter and group their definitions. They do not sufficiently limit their definitions. Massively linked to our limits offense the idea of disarming any tool weapon or armed forces impunity for schools like Northwestern Dartmouth who have the resources to cut tiny firms like get rid of one particular kind of submarine or eliminate SROs or endorse one movement that demilitarizes one section of the U.S. military that kicks the negative out of the topic, and there's untenable preparation, but it is too many apps. It is too many apps to prepare for. The next argument is metaphors predictable. They are inherently not predictable because we the people relate to words differently. I'm a chemistry major, so the first analogy that pops into my mind is nuclear fusion, which is very different than an industry expert who would think of nuclear energy. It is truly unpredictable. Counter-term radical stasis links to our offense because there's no bright line for it in any attempt to establish what is a double term with their offense, because either there's one definition of what is radical, which links to exclusion, or there's multiple definitions, which is unpredictable. What is radical to a college debater in the rural socialist form is very different than what is radical to a novice debater in rural Texas. Teams would exploit this uncertainty because the only bar they must meet is a one-liner, and they're wanting to see for why their interpretation of nuclear forces as the economy or healthcare is radical and recycle old topics. Now, the net benefit of epistemological growth, many of their arguments require that they win. There's some revolutionary potential for subjectivity in this debate, which is not true. There's no war in one. You might vote for wipeout, but you certainly don't think that distinction is a good idea. Similarly, voting out for neg in this debate is not rewire our subjectivities because there are so many other larger outcasts like school, family, friends, and religions. They don't have a warrant for why debate outweighs these, especially when we spend way more time around the other. Second is clash turns it because debates best benefits are gained from the process of debating, not the content. We might talk about arguments with coaches and friends, but when we are physically in and around our decision making is driven by competitive incentives, nothing else. This means that debate is the only thing that shapes our subjectivity. Debate only shapes our subjectivity insofar as it teaches us to process evidence. Third is the 2AR will inevitably say their model shapes subjectivity is not true until they can explain how their model means people stop spending time with family or stop switching sides or stop caring about competition. Then obviously their model also doesn't solve. 4 is importantly we have a hyper-specific word for why if they do win subjectivities, our subjectivities are good. We have read authors
authors in the 1AC authors like Ritchie that make claims about nuclear subjectivities conclude that an important step is combating the existing NFU just because it is old does not mean that it does not align with their theory. Fifth is that all of this defense of their subjectivity claim, even if they win that debates do shape subjectivities, we have impact toward the end result of that, which is activism. They have dropped the debate as a bad site for activism. Their examples of debaters that have gone on to be activists are not only not causal, but these debaters also did not engage under Long Beach's Model 1. Debate is a bad site because debate is not about finding truth. Ballots are about technical prowess. Otherwise, Spark wouldn't win a single debate. It is much more likely that certain debaters are just better than others. Presuming that the content of debates should reflect truth is bad because they risk exporting bad strategies that could be violent. Second is they drop the trade-off war in their model. Means debaters invest in labor in this activity, which is unlikely to lead to activism, trading off with other rewarding avenues like activist groups and locks and faux ballots, signaling that accustoms their politics to be palatable for white judges. There's no revolutionary clash because they've dropped the reform candidates are better because they better simulate real-world opposition and predictability. Internal link services because it's the most important internal link because it is what establishes stasis between the F and negative R. Otherwise, the F would decimate the negative on the permutation. Their model is worse for KVK debates because next turns towards generics like Hapkin and Hedgecoe, which is worse for their offense. It does not solve any of our limits. Offense because nuclearism discourse are inherently unlimiting. Certainly does not preserve the deterrence set because there's no deterrence set for abolishing any armed forces. Reasonability, they're not reasonable. That was all the limits of its bad model. That might judge intervention at an unprecedented level. Over limiting is not a form of whitewashing. We've impact turned their subaltern advocacy arguments because their explodes limits, which also crowds out the ability to meaningfully engage with the content, and they've dropped the labor is that an unlimited topic forces black and brown debaters to engage in the labor of having countless affirmatives. Now the TVA is not in your interest, convergence or explanation proves otherwise, and it certainly is not a reason to reject the team. The topical version could adopt an NFU, and the negative could respond with the critique of conventional shift and how there's a historical legacy of racism associated with such a thing. It disproves racial revisionism, saying the topic is only counterplaying this debate is true is not true. There's a direct trade-off which proves that there's no L to the perm, and the answers above also explain. I answer the next voter about interest conversion. They don't have a warrant for why any of these are a reason you should reject the team, and for any reason. Now the civil defense is that framework, fairness, and procedurals are not a weaponization or violent impositions. This argument is ahistorical and ignores the history of how framework has evolved. You should not turn a blind eye to its violent past, but also shouldn't turn a blind eye to how it has evolved over time to engage with the app's content. Our model does not ignore or erase the historical legacy of K debates, rather it's a part of framework's negotiatory process of how it has evolved from no case to things like strategy building and organizing. Most importantly, voting app cannot solve this. The 2NC had amazing wars why there's no revolutionary potential in debate. We get constantly confused on campus for mock trial or model UN. The premise that this activity, let alone this individual debate, contains the capacity to make meaningful changes actually zero. They've dropped the cruel optimism turn that thinking that it does is bad. Now, the liberatory fairness, they've dropped the straight to their model destroys minority participation because the burden of preparation is untenable. Competitive equity is the largest internal link to this because it ensures an equal playing field in the ground. The arguments about clash and the hegemonic anti-nuclearism miss out are answered about because they need to win not only subjectivity, but that spilling out into a form of activism is good, which we have impact on. The 1AR does not answer that debate is a bad site for activism. There's no deterrence higher ground arguments that was answered on subjectivity above. Our evidence is newer, but the Ritchie stuff still aligns with it. The ballot pig stuff or the ballot pig answers do not make any sense. The ballot most definitely cannot solve their office. They don't have a warrant for why it doesn't. They must be subjectivity to win this. But pigs are good against non-topical. Last one is predictable. They should be able to defend why the ballot is key to solving their offense. Second is negative ground outweighs not answering on condo app gets first. Last be truth against the status quo. Functionally infinite prep to frame the best debater. Certain doesn't steal their labor. It merely proves that you can vote for us given the other parts of the flow that we're on. We have impact on the idea that debaters are entitled to win certain arguments forward if the argument not the team. The judge instruction stuff, we have impacted their explicit judge instruction at the top because deferral is bad, even if their argument isn't vote for us because we are extra. Our argument is that their model develops into white judges adjudicating strategy debates between black debaters, which those debaters internalize those decisions as a reflection of their efficacy of their strategy, which is bad, and that surrender is a form of melancholy quiet leftism that allows you to pat yourself on the back. Case.
Sorry, do this first.
Yeah. The criminalization voter on the bank's turn. Sorry, I'll answer that here. Was answering the 1AR with 5 subpoints. Our argument isn't blaming the movement. Some are saying that those movements themselves are bad, but a practice for liberatory politics is better for you as an educator. Now, case, I'm going to answer the voters. We did not read the Connolly evidence. We didn't read it. And the one and see. Second is Perf is wrong. They dropped that there's no link. We said that nuclear risks are good to learn about. And the red poll is bad card. The argument was that the app creates more nuclear risks. The 1AR doesn't extend an impact to this argument.
Case and then Framework. I'm making this. Alright. Emory, Curtis.
Anti-blackness is an apocalyptic force when Jim Crow, mass incarceration, police, and segregation. This is a civil defense logic that has created the discourse of blackness, such as an existential threat, and through infrastructural logics by designating black space as a death space, which allows nuclear weapons to be maintained via prison labor, which is a conceded war. Futurism solves it because it disarms the refusal of because it disarms via the refusal of this pedagogy and investments into black futures, i.e., they have dropped their J Trim and when they see Del Suaveness as that our performance mobilizes protests and is in line with things like protesting, lynching, and protest and catalyzing movements like the civil rights movement, which means we have a valid key warrant that answers all of their stuff on the framework. I'm going to extend the con on early voter because it was dropped since the 2NC and they have done wrong by only trying to get a new respondent in the 2 hour. Remember the rehighlighting that we said it was an example of the Connolly evidence defending duck and cover Joes because it says that nuclear education needs to be brought back via duck and cover Joes. The present no evidence says this is racist because that type of exercise would only exclude black people indefinitely because black people were viewed as subversive. You should reject the team because in-round moments of racism outweigh whatever clash and disprove the subjectivity change because it means that if you keep on being racist and round, you should lose rather than relying on hypothetical scenarios of debate where they obviously won't change their subjectivity because they're being racist in this round. And it's also a diss to their traditional models of education because if it means that we need to refer to traditional models of debate to prefer traditional forms of nuclear education as per the Connolly evidence, then we are winning an in-round reason for why that form of racism is bad. Their only answer was did not read it. You should call bullshit on this trip. You should not trust any new articulations that Emory is reading on this page because Emory is notorious for having scrambled documents, being bad for organizing our documents and lying about messy documents. Grace could have clarified this when she asked me after the 1 year on the Connolly evidence what was the answer. It was a presumption that as she had read the card in order to try and answer it. Why didn't Emory or Grace say I didn't read it during prep? It is because they are trying to lie through their teeth because they had dropped a voter and he dissed to the traditional model education and a dissed to the performance inbound. That cross-ex moment, it could have been a moment to clarify I didn't read the card, but they didn't, which means that you should not trust any new tuner articulations. Go to framework now. What we clash over matters, which is evidenced by the voter on case. Emory will win. Some of the limit is this, but never win that their model creates better people. They spend so much of the 2NC and Twin making defense saying that they spend so much of the 2NC and Twin making defensive arguments, but have never made an offensive reason for why their model is better, which means it is try or die from the counter interpretation to prove better people. Even if you are skeptical about the causal connection, it is still greater than theirs. One, all the examples of people, Davon, Louise, Brenda, but I can go on and on like Gio, Bill, Will Baker, etc. But there is 0 examples for them. Second, they only have Carl Rover type crews or etc. But 3, they're dissed about debate not being a good side of education and we are better spent and being activists or protesting is the civil defense logic where you treat black people or debate styles coded as black as subversive, i.e. you're willing to concede that framework in the past has been racist, but for some fucking reason you will never acknowledge that your legacy or the way that you read framework can never be separated from that legacy in the first place. Their first argument was to vote for limits and clash extend the counter-interpretation here. Affirmation negates the revolution through radical state supporting, which means affirming the restriction of U.S. nuclear forces through critical perspective that includes abolition to irradiate international Afrofusion, post-colonial or revolt and excludes as don't restrict nuclear forces. Conceded all of our counter definitions for what restrict nuclear forces. Civil defense logic means that we are a nuclear force because civil defense is both a form of nuclear discourse and an infrastructure, which is stuff I extended above. You should prefer it. 1, limits defense. Teams that don't defend a reduction of nuclearism can still live to T, but subpoint B, every single loss of negative ground that they have given you in the 2R is we can't read dissets, which we have impact turned the reading of the disset in the first place. They have dropped all the other examples of negative ground that you can get, such as cases like the disset, as long as you went in the theory and prove it is ethical, i.e. via util, consequential is logical, but they haven't done that. You can read counter performances and our generic critiques are better, like futurism versus pessimism, dual power versus anarchism, land back versus grand relationality, which all link to any limits disset about small affirmatives, because the critiques always question the underlying assumptions of any affirmative, which means you don't need to have a link based on the magnitude of affirmative, but instead about the underlying assumptions which acts as terminal defense to all of their dissets. They say the ballot is key, the ballot cannot solve fairness. We've impact turned fairness is very racist. The big schools dissent, the reason we brushed it off is because one, it is non-unique, and second, there's no way that Emory as a school is telling CSU Long Beach what big schools will do. Next, the chemistry major stuff is new. I don't give a fuck if you're a chemistry major, because it is about models of debate based in definitions that we have read, not about subjective interpretations of what metaphors are. There's no concern about the radicality stuff. You should read the Smith evidence. The reason this radicalism doesn't apply because the Smith evidence says that critical theory are the methods that prioritize the liberation of people of color, and it still needs to be tied to literature that is pertaining to the topic, which obviously zeroes out all their healthcare affirmative this as the recycle old topics already answered the above. The spark evidence one, the counter interpretation would recalibrate the types of literature that we clash over, which solves this disset, but also this sparks of is a disset to their model, because that is the status quo. You should status quo that we solve. It proves that such information, because it is wild that we have spark debates. It is wild that we have deterrence disset. It is wild that we have first strike counter plans, and that is why the counter interpretation is necessary to move away from the status quo debate. The family friends argument, it is about this space. Remember that amounts of such interpretations outside the space do not matter, because it is about the formulations of debate that we have inside here. They say debate is bad side for activism. I answered it above. They say performance debate is better under their model. This is a new argument, so you shouldn't validate now the TBA. It is answered by the fairness disset, but I will extend the answers here. One, interest convergence disset. Team should only read the TBA when in front of other black debaters, which refuses to tackle the racist foundations of the activity. And the way we discuss nuclearism, it doesn't solve the affirmative, because we would lose on permutation, because this is a disarm av, but also futurism performance would get crowded out. The switch side arguments is overcoded by the fairness argument. Also, the hegemonic anti-nuclearism, the type of debates that we would have is deterrence dissets only, which replicate all of the dissets that I've isolated above, which means switch side doesn't solve, because we have impacts on the entirety of their model debate.